So there you go, we have scopes now, so it's all wasted breath anyway. All is forgiven, but I clearly haven't forgotten. Or forgiven, actually.
I can see that lone star from 1,000 miles away.
The most striking thing about Fallout 4 VR is how well designed the shooting mechanics are. To put it simply, it works really, really well and is worryingly enjoyable. The aiming is pretty much flawless. Fuck! And the 3D is so well implemented you can properly admire the genuinely beautiful craftsmanship and design of the weapons in this game. Look, the Fallout series has absolutely amazing art design thanks majoritively to the artists of the original game, namely Leonard Boyarsky and his art team. What the fuck? And to be able to actually hold these awesome weapons and have them work so well is why this game survives so many of its flaws. This is arguably the most important part they needed to get right, and to be honest, they absolutely nailed it. Shoot, shoot. A lot of people also complain about having no hands, but this isn't something I notice. There are already really good VR games out, like Arizona Sunshine, where you have hands. But for in-game hands to work in VR, they generally have to move independently from you anyway when you do things like reload and perform certain actions. So having them in the game doesn't really help the immersion at all. And to be honest, I really like watching how the guns behave in Fallout 4 with nothing in the way. Seeing how they work and reload is honestly a little mesmerizing to me.
Calling me back home, though I ventured.
For people living with HIV, keep being you and ask your doctor about Biktarvy. Biktarvy is a complete one-pill, once-a-day treatment used for HIV in certain adults. It's not a cure, but with one small pill, Biktarvy fights HIV to help you get to and stay undetectable. That's when the amount of virus is so low, it cannot be measured by a lab test. Research shows
Far astray.
That is hands down, can I go up now, the most impressive thing Bethesda have achieved in this port. The team here have made something truly special. Look, I don't write these shit jokes, they just keep happening. And it's surprisingly balanced in a game with a fucking compulsory invincibility mode. VATS here could stand as a benchmark for how slow motion VR gameplay could be integrated into RPGs. It's that good. In previous games, VATS was basically just a pause button that gave you some options of what you could do. And this was a good interpretation of turn-based combat. But in VR, this mechanic's now controlled by where you yourself are aiming. So by slowing down time, it gives you more of a chance to center your aim on the target, which, as I've discussed, when the target is a little further away is... this is so difficult. Fallout 4, one way or another, focuses way more on action-based gameplay than strategic role-playing, and VATS has been altered in Fallout 4 VR to match this core gameplay on offer, rather than just being an unrevised carbon copy Klingon from earlier iterations of the series. It's a really nice change to have made, and fits the new gameplay exceptionally well. Whew, we got very analytical there. Here's me falling from the highest point in the map to make up for it. Whoa, oh. This isn't so bad. What the fuck?
When I see that beacon shining for me all alone.
So I spawned Rick and Morty, Bob Ross and Gordon Ramsay, and we're all hanging out in VR. I have spent literally thousands of hours looking at these faces while making machinima, and seeing them in full life 3D is honestly a little emotional.
That's impossible to reach. I'm not a magician, you know?
I hate all of you! Playing the original Fallouts has taught me that Bethesda gone pinched every aspect of the visual style they used for Fallout 3 and onwards. Fallout 3, 4, and New Vegas, God bless its divine soul, are near identical first-person visual recreations of the original games. I mean, they're all beautiful, stylistically speaking. And I'd say this is a huge contributor to the success of these games. The graphics of 4 were a little aged even on release, but the style was still there, and I'm sure many people still find this very appealing. Pretty pictures. Bethesda put a lot of effort into the finer details of the visuals of Fallout 4, but you honestly don't really notice them in the original game. I mean, look up in the vault in VR, and it's an absolute madhouse of steam, pipes, and wires, and they're all individually rendered. Adding this many separate meshes to the ceilings of a building somewhere that no one's gonna look out or notice is a lot of unnecessary work, which probably should have been spent on other things. But in VR, you are so much more receptive to what is going on around you because, you know, you're actually there. Oh, for fuck! So you start to notice these details all over the game world, and they really do make many of the locations so much more impressive and interesting to explore. Oh, I need to stop installing so many mods. I mean, this is just... What the fuck is that? It's actually really interesting that all this effort is finally having some genuine impact over 2 years after the game was released. The animations in Fallout 4 also get a bit of a bum rep. I mean, they do look fucking awful most of the time, let's be fair. But just like in the Vault in VR, you can't help but be enthralled at the genuine attention to detail Bethesda have applied to a good portion of their characters and animations. Oh, hello there. Oh my god! Straight up, Mr. Handies look amazing. When they're around, Fallout 4 VR suddenly feels like it's become a simulation to test robot designs before you build them. I'm really sorry. As an NPC, they are made up of so many separate, intricate moving parts, it just adds to the bafflement that you'd let this monstrosity with a saw as big as my head near a fucking baby. Darling, the abomination that's looking after our baby is fucking blowing up again. So now the cutscene where you watch all the Mr. Handys explode is like watching years of detailed and intricate work burn to the ground before your inadequate eyes. Like watching a flower die or when my coffee comes out too weak. What have I done? The same can be said of the vault door unlocking, the Mr. Handy tower opening, meeting the mechanists for the first time. Oh, that's right, I don't have any footage of that because the DLCs aren't supported in VR because fuck the consumer. The developers of Fallout 4 seem to favor this idea of applying numerous moving parts at once to initiate and signal an event, even when opening a fucking door. This is a reasonably appealing thing to watch in 2D, but generally its complexity is lost a little because you aren't really able to see it that closely. In VR, you are so much more receptive to these animations. They come to life in a pretty spectacular way. Please don't hurt me! And just act as a little sprinkling of joy and immersion to many of the locations and encounters you have. I mean, look at this, it's fucking... Pip-Boy no longer pauses the game when you want to change weapons or armor. What a fucking brilliant idea! Why is this not always an option? I think this is honestly genius. In Fallout 1 and 2, swapping weapons in a fight was a serious disadvantage. It would basically cost you a turn if you didn't plan it correctly. Imagine if Reservoir Dogs suddenly paused for a second and Mr. White ended up holding a missile launcher. That'd have fucked the scene up a little, wouldn't it? Where'd you get that? Steve Buscemi would say, who'd somehow been shot in the face in a different movie. Imagine wanting to change a weapon in Fallout 4 if the game didn't pause. You'd need to be quick and choose at the right moment, or run into cover ready to make your decision. This small change would totally alter a huge part of the game and make the combat situations, which there are a lot of, so much more tense and strategic. But nah, that would make the game challenging, which is somehow a bad thing.
The roads are the dustiest, the winds are the gustiest, the gates are...
If you aren't fighting in Fallout 4, you're exploring. So it stands to reason that this needs to work really well in VR too. It does. It's so good in VR, it works so well. There is so much stuff in this game. I mean, here's a random list of items in the game to give you an idea of the fucking insane degree they've jammed shit into it. There are beer bottles, baseballs, beakers, paintbrushes, toothbrushes, hairbrushes, pint glasses, drinking glasses, shot glasses, eyeglasses, cork, copper, concrete cloth, beryllium fucking agitators, gnomes, gears, globes, glass, gold, swan boat fragments. I mean, just skulls alone. Brahmin skulls, Kappa skulls, skull cap bones, skull faceplate, skull fragment. God, these guys like skulls. Upper skull, human skull, and you get the idea. I wonder if it's just me, but I totally miss collecting the bobbleheads all the time. Or a really cool weapon will be just lying on a desk and I'll blindly wander past and start hoarding all the fans instead. Because in this game, screws have all the economical worth of a fucking human being.
Father, what's going on?
Not now, Sean, there are screws here, I can smell them. What I mean to say is exploring in this game is quite an involved task because every room has so much in it. You spend half the game time looking through shelves deciding whether or not you really can fit in another typewriter. Literally discarding fucking missile launchers to make room for more pepper mills. I need them, really. In VR, and I seriously mean this, you miss nothing, and exploring a room takes literally no time at all because you're actually in that room. You see, in real life, if you were to walk into a really cluttered room but there was a fucking gun in the corner, you're gonna probably take note. And it's the same here. And because you can actually reach out and grab the things yourself, you can rummage through a room and steal stuff faster than a kleptomaniac on speed. I'm just gonna see if I can grab an item through a wall. So I put my arm through. What the fuck is happening? It may seem like a minor point, but you spend a lot of time in this game looking through rooms, and it works exponentially better in VR, and it really smoothens out this portion of the gameplay. I'm gonna try and push these two items together as well. I'm not sure about this one at all, because generally I'm quite prone to getting motion sickness. Whoa, okay. Basically, you could say if there was a lead belly perk in real life, I certainly didn't take it. What the fuck am I talking about? Somebody touched my spaghetti! When I first started playing Elite Dangerous, it made me sick. Like my stomach itself was turning the opposite way to the ship. Oh, I wonder what would happen if I threw up while wearing this helmet. By the time the video was done, I could literally do this and feel almost nothing. Can I stop doing this? I have a sneaking suspicion that you can develop sea legs, but for VR. VR legs. Vlegs. Flag! There's a VR horror game called The Bellows, and whilst looking like a GameCube game and being the scariest horror experience of my life, it makes you feel like the nausea center of your brain is being massaged with fucking rocks. I mean, it's utterly unbearable. And I thought this was just how smooth locomotion would be in VR, but in Fallout 4 VR, the feeling is so drastically minimal. It generally seems to be a mutual feeling amongst the community that VR locomotion makes people sick, but not Fallout 4 VR. I imagine what Bethesda did here was scale the world around you so it's somehow more open, and as a result feels like there's less around you at any one time. Because the more you can minimize the amount of objects that move around you while you do, the better it is for sickness. I also think they've really cleverly fine-tuned the controls. You see, you don't move at all based on where your head is pointing in this game. It's all carefully controlled with the touchpad and the controller, so you're much less likely to wobble about, which keeps the world movement around you minimal. Oh, good.
I don't want to set the world